recording now. Thanks everybody for jumping in. We are now in this is the second specification steering committee meeting for the baseline protocol community. We've all introduced ourselves in the previous meeting, which is published on YouTube on our playlist. I think it's called Baseline. So we will publish this one as well to the baseline channel. There was a suggestion that we publish those to the baseline channel directly. I kind of like giving credit to people that do work, and so I suggested to the person that did the work that they put it on their own channel so they can get credit for it. But and I think normally that's the right call, but for future TSC SSC meetings, we'll put it directly on the channel. Somebody ought to hire that guy because he does great work. He's fast and he's doing it all for free. So I like that, fast and free, two good words I like. So very kind of them to do that. Hope everybody's doing okay. Daniel? We are recording.
Everything's good here. Thanks.
Hey, John. Sorry I'm late.
Hey, York. No worries. So we're just getting going. All right. So here's the agenda. I will share my screen real quick. And go over to the SSC meetings. We just had our TSC meeting. I'll give you a quick recap on that, but the agenda items I have, and while I'm going through these, please think of ones that need to be added or modified. We're going to form a Spike team to create an SSC draft governance document. So I'd like to find a pair of buddies. I like the buddy system. So if we find two people to really draft that this week, that would be really good. Because unlike the TSC, we do not have a formal SSC governance document, and it's probably high time that we get one. SSC is deliberately more flexible, but we should have some rules written down so that people can know what we're doing and how we do it. I think having had a week or two to figure out the job, I think we're ready to write some stuff down, I hope. So looking for volunteers on that. Second is the incentive framework and funding. I'll talk about some things that we discussed on the TSC, about some incentive opportunities, in particular Gitcoin hackathons, which has come to us with some suggestions. And then we're going to have a working session, 20-minute activity where we're going to work on semi-asynchronously but live, and hopefully this will be fun for everybody and will work and not be too weird, but we'll basically go quiet for between 15 and 20 minutes, and we will chunk out some big project level structure. Now, I'll take you through that in a minute, and then we have to decide the next meeting. Do we have any other items for the agenda? Going once, going twice. York, anything there?
No, just was looking at it carefully.
All right. Last week we looked at products and platforms. We looked at an item or two like gas pump. We'll go through that in a minute. And we determined that we would not have verticals yet, but that we would work on a sort of cross-vertical use case, kind of a focus for the and establish a canonical set of requirements, functional and non-functional, for any kind of vertical, and then we would probably start to see verticals appearing. Clearly, we already have a healthcare vertical, that's, practically forming. You got Pill and Stefan, and they've been quite active offline as well in terms of meetings and getting people involved. There was a Microsoft Cat person that was I won't name the name in case they don't want to be named. But if anybody's confident that they can name them, they can go ahead and do that. I just don't want to take the liberty here.
Was that Justin or somebody else?
There you go. So somebody said it. Didn't feel it was for me to say. So there's a lot of activity around healthcare already, but that's, and supply chain, obviously. So I suppose the other thing that we should add here are, I'll put it right down here, is invitation. More SSC members. I'm mindful of the fact that there are a bunch of folks from supply chain companies and from ERP, SCM, CRM kinds of companies. And we're getting a lot of inbound. A lot of companies are calling. It was on the last call, pick a bank, and they probably called. And not just them.
John, I think one of the actually important things that we should ask on those inbound calls is what would they see as a requirement for first action? In other words, like, what's their go-do? Like, if they wanted to do something, is there something they could test with, right? Like, what was?
Yep. Inbounds. Can you say more on that, York, or did we lose you there?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically thinking through. I was looking at your gas station point that you made before, and so the point was, like, if somebody wanted to test out the thesis, like, what would they go do? What's their first action that we are giving people?
Yeah, I like the way you put that. So yeah. What do we tell them? What do we suggest they go do first?
Yeah, I mean, is there a simple test that they could? Is there a simple test that is available that would allow them to self-prove the thesis without them having to actually dive in and start developing code, right? Because the faster we help them prove the thesis, the faster the progress, right?
I like that a lot. Anybody have any other thoughts on that? Joseph? Arwen?
Yeah, one quick thought from me would be I'll volunteer to test it out. Or said differently, I think I myself, at least, don't feel I have gone through this myself yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly for inbounds, people are looking for validation, right? I think they're looking for, hey, what is this? Is this real? Do I need to go into? Do I need a developer to go, really dig through this and code, or is there a simple way we could actually give them a sample or tooling, right? Even on a web page, right? That showcases, they can input potentially they could input some data, right? That we would basically be able to show them, through some kind of demonstration that, the thesis holds.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to perhaps indeed have this a bit more formalized into sort of architectural, artifacts, UML interaction diagrams and things, and I think, York, that's a good idea. Have certain pieces like the zero knowledge aspect kind of taken out of it and made it interactive, right? Where you can basically, it's sort of like a little web tool that says, hey, put this in, and this is what they will see. This is what will be, submitted to the Shield contracts and so forth. And, I mean, maybe that's something I can try to contribute. I just didn't find any sort of efficient way for me to get to that level, right? So maybe there's something there that's getting into more generalized, the deeper dive education aspect of this, that at the end of this, you come out and say, wow, yes, that's what we need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's sort of letting, like if you attack it from the perspective of different audiences, right? Definitely, we've got the right tooling there for a developer audience, right? But if a business person is going to make a decision to allow a developer to spend time on it, they need to have a very quick answer, right? So prove to me that this works, right? And prove to me that this works could essentially be something they could actually do themselves, which then removes the weeks of work that a developer would probably have to take to come back to them and prove it, right? So sort of like just getting over that first hurdle.
So one thing that I can add over here from our side, and I know I had a conversation with Brian Chamberlain a week ago about this. So we already have a VM in Azure, which is ready to go. Essentially, what we plan on doing, if anyone has seen what we did, I'm talking about Envision, what we did with the trusted rewards token built within the EEA is we created a web app out of that, right? So it was like a demo to showcase what was built out of the Trusted Compute working group. So one thing that I know we can contribute here is we can host that demo of the UI and everything up and running once everything is all set. So you can go ahead and pass that, ready to work demo of the Radish 34, out there to whoever wants to see it, so that they just don't have to go ahead and build it all over again, right? That's one thing to help out. I don't know what the greater plan was, but if you guys want someone to host that, we'd be happy to host that here. Another thing was we also just contributed. So just to your point, Stefan, to kind of see the different things that are happening within the Radish 34 demo, we wrote out those individual logs. So I know this is a little bit more of a developer focused thing, but one thing that we wanted to do is as we demo this out to individuals, typically the C-suite, they don't want to have to dig through the different logs to see what's happening with the zero knowledge proofs, what's happening on the UI, what's happening with the messaging services. So we contributed into the README file so that you can just go ahead and take those logs and just go and open up a new terminal and just enter that command. That's getting a little bit into the weeds to what you were discussing, but it's kind of on the same topic.
That's fantastic. So maybe Daniel, can you and York, I know you guys are pretty, you guys are a Microsoft vendor, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe you guys could buddy up on that. York, I don't mean to volunteer you for something, but maybe we could, I know that Brian and team, we were talking about a hosted version of the demo of Radish 34 before we launched. And we kicked that off the back of the truck for other things. So it's, again, another testament to the community that somebody stepped up and did that.
I can chat with you guys offline about that. We kind of already have some ideas that are brewing.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Thanks, Daniel.
All right. So shall we say that, hosted to demo or hosted POC by say middle of April or next week, or how soon can we do it?
I think as soon as we get through some of the kinks that Radish 34 has now, there's some things that are going on in the issues, right? As soon as that's up and running and we can verify the build, we'll go ahead and put that up, and then from there it's just couple hours to go and throw that into hosted VM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a big effort.
The hosted version, this is Brian Chamberlain here. I just wanted to follow up with what I heard from York was something that maybe is slightly different than the Radish POC, but it sounded something that was, I wonder if you could just explain a little more about what you would want to see in that kind of demonstration, or it almost sounded like an extracted version of the protocol, is explained visually, and then possibly with code that you could walk through, like if I'm hearing correctly, even more distilled version of the protocol than what the POC offers. Is that?
Yeah, I think we probably should take offline what's achievable with relatively little work, but also actually solves for sort of the request. And I think the request is, how can I easily demonstrate to myself that this thing works, right? And so I want to take sort of a first sniff test on it, right? And I think John rightly put a quote, which is, if I am going to go ask somebody to do some work on this, I kind of would like to know that it's real before I go do that, as a first sniff test. And so I think we might as well answer that question with something quite simple.
Okay.
While we're on this topic, and it depends on the audience, but the inclusion of something in there around a proof of value or business case scenario, a bit abstracted from just the technology itself, would be particularly valuable, just given the current climate.
Karen, could you say more about that? I was writing and I didn't pick up all of it, but it sounded pretty good. So could you repeat some of it?
Sure. Just around, not only is it important to prove the efficacy of the technology and the novelty of what baseline is and what it's doing, but particularly given the current climate, as budgets and other things are being reassessed, it's important to have a proof of value, or even what we discussed before in the previous meeting, just a longer term strategy and vision for what a solution like this can provide to a company.
So prove why baselining is worthy of prioritization in a time like this, in particular. In time.
Yeah. And to make it even narrower, I mean, just from a financial standpoint, is just the ultimate clarity you can give.
Why do this versus something else?
Exactly.
Right. So why is this a more compelling, from a financial perspective? Why is it a more compelling approach than what you would otherwise do, which would be a consortium, right?
Exactly.
Or capex to build an MQ or other kind of middleware, right? Or ESB. Yeah, I think that is a big deal. In fact,
I also
Karen,
think along with that, I think we should take a look at the potential personas that would use this. I mean,
you don't love Cecil the CISO? He's my favorite.
Well, I think we've been very focused on enterprise to enterprise business workflows, but I think there also is potentially a business application value proposition that we haven't really talked about. So something like SAP or Dynamics, or other products like that that could think about this from a product solutioning perspective, and an opportunity to leverage basically a message bus, right?
Yeah. So if you put those two things together, in York, by the way, anytime you want to set up a project that does an SAP to Dynamics POC,
Mm-hmm.
I think you should do it. And I think there are a lot of people that would chip in if you can help us get that going. Or anything to Dynamics would be awesome.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily talking about interoperability. Even like if you look at a value proposition in a message bus generally, right? Like any business application that uses message bus technology could now extend that to a multi-institutional message bus.
Yeah, and I think that's really the key. It's starting to compare what, say, the B2B space and generalized looks like today, right? Many, many, many EDI point-to-point connections buried deep, deep, deep in ERPs. You know, and say, what is the problem with that? I mean, people have been coping with this for the last 30 years. People think that's the greatest thing, right? That's good. That's where it is, right? I think it needs this convincing story to say, oh, duh, right? And what I use in other efforts is a decentralized single sign-on will give you what we 15 or 10 years ago decided enterprises need, because all of these different websites that they're bringing up internally, right? So maybe something that simplifies it that far out, and then say, okay, the reason why this has not happened until now is because of this, and this is what baseline solves.
Right on. And I think from an industry perspective, so Karen and Stefan, you might be you know, along with York, be really good buddies for maybe a project. Can show us how to do that in a minute. On this topic, that at least produces a deck that isn't, you know, I mean, I've been writing about this a long time, but I think I'm starting to hear my own voices. I mean, it might be really good to have, you know, fresh voices around this. I mean, if you want my answer to some of this in terms of in times like these, it's not about versus consortium, it's or consortia. I think that it would be very hard right now to justify a consortia getting together in these times. Not impossible, but hard. But to be able to say, look, we can get rid of the capital expense of doing the thing you had to do anyway, good times or bad times. The plumbing has to go in because we have a new partner, or we have a new regulation. We have to comply with this new world, and there's a new compliance that we have to agree to, and it involves these multiple companies. And we need to get it up fast. And now that we're strapped for cash and we're debt ridden, et cetera, maybe it's okay for us to finally accept the idea that there's this always on state machine we can use without having to set one up.
And I think too, at this point, with where blockchain stands as a technology, you'd be hard pressed to show somebody a use case that they haven't thought of before. And with the complexity of zero knowledge, anything beyond a high level understanding isn't going to provide that much additional value in a lot of ways, because the complexity of it just grows very quickly. So the more attention you can put to understanding the system as a whole, I think that the stronger the case is.
And I guess just to add on to that, I think that those are all really, really, really good points. There was an action item for me from the last call to pass along a survey of questions. And Karen, what you're asking, there's a couple questions that are specifically addressing how to identify the business ROI from a requirements gathering session. So for example, you know, some of the questions that we asked, you know, are along the lines of, you know, if there are unauthorized usage of whatever the asset that you're trying to protect are, what is the financial implication up and down the stream? You know, if certain requirements of these non-functional requirements are not met, what is the financial implications? And some of them could be very, very costly. And I think that we kind of have, no pun intended, we have a baseline of questions that we can ask that helps identify where that is. I know I posted that on the Oasis thread. I'm not sure, you know, if everyone got it, but again, I'd be happy to circulate that again.
Yeah, I'll have a look for it. Thanks.
Sure.
Could we, are you looking for input? I would suggest maybe just share it as a shared document.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And by the way, everybody should golf clap for Daniel and team for producing such a nice first class on baseline protocol. Yeah, they really stepped up. They actually offer a class in the Azure marketplace. I barely understand baselining myself, and I've been on it for while, so was Brian, and yet these guys have already put up a class on it for money, and you did that free session, which was great. That's on the YouTube channel, so if anybody didn't know, there's a YouTube channel for Baseline Protocol, and there's a playlist. And I've had some feedback that maybe the playlist isn't the best way to do these things, that we should put them on the channel. But I also like to give credit to the people that do the work. And so like the TSC and the SSC meetings last week were done by a kind individual in the Chainlink community that built these nice videos. And I said, just put it on your own channel and then we'll put it on our playlist. So definitely check the playlist, which is baseline or something like that.
Maybe John, maybe I agree with your motivation there. Maybe it makes sense to just come up with standard like sort of framework that says, you know, if somebody produces content, we'll leave it on their channel for the first N number of weeks or whatever, right? And then we'd like to ultimately move it over into the baseline channel.
That's a good, yeah. The alternative to that is we do it on the channel. By the way, there's a little extra work in that because it's you know, that means myself or somebody else has to get the file and upload it to YouTube. Yep. It's much easier to just hit the playlist save. But you know, we could say, hey, you know, if you do it, feel free to put a PSA for yourself in the video, but we want it on the channel. So there's a couple ways to do this. Agree. All right.
So we did the webinar, and you know, I guess that there was the option that we could either host it, you know, on our platform, but I also have the MP4, right? So I'd be more than happy just to pass along the MP4, right, and we can host it in both.
I wish there was a way on the channel to just pin something to the channel, but have it go to the other guy's thing. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, sure.
It's an issue for another day. I think we have higher priorities issues right now. Mm-hmm. So we'll put a pin in that one. Karen and Stefan, I kind of did not officially, I wrote your names down under this issue, but it's probably that was an unkind act on my part. I didn't ask your permission. So is that something you guys want to buddy up on or not? And no is a perfectly good answer.
Yeah.
Yes, on my side.
Okay, you guys are both on Slack. Karen, I heard I didn't hear yes. I better get it.
Yes, that works for me as well.
Right, good. I just want to be respectful of your time. I know you're both incredibly busy. Okay, so if you're game for that one, and please, you can put me to work for you on that as well.
Yeah, the only thing exactly what that's thanks, John. That's what I want to say. I think I can start leading in with, you know, what sort of I need to click through to get that cohesive sort of story, right? But then I'm not sure I can fill in, right? So I may need then, you know, you guys to contribute with since you've been thinking and briefing this for quite a while, right? So hopefully you can then just fire off.
I'm sure you all agree that the hardest, the premium in a community like this is not on work necessarily, but on initiative, right? So people can react pretty well to things, but it's hard to initiate and actually spur action. There's a person in Consensus that you know, I often say they provide willpower services, right? They just have willpower and they say, let's do this, and people go, okay, and you know, it looks like power, but it's not. It's just willpower. Right. So if you guys can provide the willpower services, then you can, you know, it's easy for me or any of us to react to that and say, so yeah, put us to work. Right? Say, hey, we need this, we need that. And yeah, you guys are both on the Slack. So,
hey Karen, what time zone are you in?
Central.
In Houston, so Central.
Okay, all right. I'm Pacific. So yeah.
Hey York, are you on the GitHub?
I think so.
What's your handle?
York Roads 3.
You're not in this project yet.
Okay, let me go there.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I've assigned Daniel to this. you'll see that this is, so this is the next part of our agenda, I think. Review perspective, maintain, no, that's the TSC, sorry. Darn it, there. I'm going to push the incentive framework and funding down to the bottom if we have time. Let's do this working session. We just identified, and by the way, this is a really great team. Already people are chiming in, got great ideas. We're not grandstanding. So I'd like to commend everybody for good online team skills. So the personas, that's a great example of a project. Prove why baselining is worthy. So I'd like to show you how we would do this so that you can do it yourself. Does anybody not know how to get ZenHub on their GitHub thing? Okay. The step one, get ZenHub. No, just so ZenHub appears as a tab when you enable it in Chrome, but you can also just navigate to. You can go to ZenHub, and this is enabled. Oasis handles this for us. ZenHub is an overlay to GitHub itself. And so one of the things GitHub doesn't allow you to do that ZenHub does within GitHub is, or as an overlay to GitHub, is projects and epics. We went through these last week. So let's just create a new project called what do we say? Prove why baselining is worthy of prioritization. So content that quickly proves baseline utility. That good? Yeah? No? Okay. So I'm saving it. And now I'm going to add an epic. We'll call this why now deck. Please change this. Karen and Stefan, but I'm giving this to you guys. So the why now deck. Yeah, we'll call it that. And now you see that this is part, and we can say that this project's going to go on until the 14th, let's say. Or we can make it until the end of the month. Let's make it until the end of the month. These things can take time. And now this view, I think in some ways good, but some ways kind of a pain, does not allow you to add epics underneath these epics or stories underneath these epics. So you go into the thing and spawns a new window, and I'm going to put the assignees. I don't know if you guys, Stefan and Karen, do you have GitHub IDs in here yet? I'm guessing not.
I don't, no.
I don't think I do.
All right, so I'll leave this alone until you guys get in there. You can assign it to yourselves. And you'll see, you know, right now we just have a why now deck. You can add a new issue to it and say, I gotta add, Brian, that was where I was saying that the templates are not populating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll just blow this out and I'll say, why now deck, we could say spike on research why the why companies should prioritize baselining in hard times. Say, again, I'm just making this up. Please fix it. And then you can write your epic language in here, and you see here, you'll see if you've enabled ZenHub, you see that it says create an epic. So this can itself be an epic. We only use issues for engineering tasks. So epics can nest. So this could be a topic within a topic, and ultimately a story or some non-engineering task. But we only use issues for So create that epic, and then you can, and that's it. So we're going to create the epic, and it should be within the dependency of the higher level epic. Not inside an epic, so we do that. We put in what was it called? What did I call that thing? Why now deck. There it is. So when we do that, now it's inside the Why Now deck, and as we finish it, as it gets done, this will start to populate up. Everybody good? Offline after this meeting, I'll do a couple more based on the notes that we have here. The personas, York, that was a good idea, and the VM in Azure. I think I just created that. So here, Daniel and folks hosted baseline POC demos is in there, and I've got a first epic in there. You guys can finish it out, and you can add engineering tasks to that one, obviously, because there are some. And you do that in the form of issues. Any questions on that? Wait, Owen, I see you. Yep, go ahead.
ZenHub, the main 3 features of ZenHub that we're using here. One is obviously the Gantt chart.
Yep. And then you've got the board. And this is a task that we have for the maintainers, is to build the correct pipelines. So this is getting done right now. We just added 3 more maintainers to the list.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the action items.
So it's sort of like a Trello overlay on GitHub.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's just in GitHub and it's free.
Nice.
Or it's directly integrated into GitHub in a deep way. So, yeah, that's it.
Right. Sorry, John, did you have a question for me?
Yeah. Oh, and I just wanted to mention that you've got a messaging one down here. Why don't you go ahead and take control of that one? Just put your name on it and start to flesh out the sub-epics and epics within those epics and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I put comments into the GitHub epic, but I wasn't sure where to put the rest of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
just go right in here and you can flesh it all here. One of the nice things about here is that it's not cluttering up the actual GitHub environment. The projects and epics are objects that are exogenous to GitHub itself, so you're not going to confuse engineering by putting stuff in here. At least you shouldn't. And Brian, I check my 6 on that. If it turns out it's confusing, let me know. All right, so that's this. So I thought, if there's no further, wait, Brian, were you trying to get a question in there too? I saw your face light up on the when you're
no.
Okay, just want to make sure. So this morning and over the weekend, I wrote a few of these, and I thought that's what we could do for the remainder of of our time, or at least for the next 15 minutes before we do our final stuff, is to just go through some of these and give you, and then let's all kind of come up with our own if we're missing any. So I thought we'd give 10 minutes of quiet time, and we use the chat window to list, to type our own that we can then integrate in here. So ones that I've already put in are fast deploy of baseline components. That's a project that could be done. The goal of this, I'm sorry, is to start to set up the things that we can point people to say, hey, look over here, shiny object, something you can work on. The community is really raring to go. And so all we have to do is say, hey, something to work on over here. And it seems like we'll have somebody working on And where that isn't happening will be interesting too, right? Because that's where we can apply incentives, or we can go find other people. So a system of record integration tools, the Unibright folks and the Chainlink folks and others are already working on this one. And there's even, and York, this might be where you might want to put in an Epic or another project entirely around the idea of dynamics and working with some other thing. And yes, I would love to see a SAP/dynamics example of using baselining between those two systems. Would be, it could achieve what Karen was talking about. I mean, people would be like, aha. Or at least in part. Add baselining to Truffle. That's another one. Corp identity, DID, and global phone book. You know, clearly we need a connection, both the messaging system and a lot of other things needs. You know, this is partly an influencer campaign. We've got to go make sure that the identity folks are getting their job done, so that we can utilize it, and that our standards for the org registry are in line with that. So we need to make sure that the org registry is DID compliant, and that we write the spec that way. Yep. Brian, you're up. Oh, I think we lost him. Anyway, there's the rest of them, right? There's gas pump, you know, system. See, that's another problem here is we got two system integrations. So we can delete this one. It's got nothing on it. So yeah, delete the project. Corp identity, rebasing. Yeah, so ways to reestablish consistency when it's been lost between two systems. A baseline proof will tell you that you're consistent or not, but it won't tell you the data, right? So if you know the data's been lost and all parties don't have it anymore, then you have an issue. Workflow step tools, how to make more workflow steps and that sort of thing, etc. So a lot of projects that can come up here. Can we take 10 minutes and just use the group chat and just there can be silence on the line. If anybody needs to talk, feel free, or you can sidebar chat with people. But let's see if we can list a number of other project topics starting now.
Doing this in chat, John?
Yeah, it might as well just use the Zoom group chat. I was thinking about using a separate tool, but I just figured it was easiest to do it this way. Bill, I answered your question about, yeah, you won't see any of these in GitHub issues, only on ZenHub. And that's a feature, not a bug. You want the ZenHub, you want the GitHub issues to only be engineering tasks that you then connect to ZenHub epics. I'll make a quick prompt, voice prompt here. In the last 3 or 4 minutes, you might can think about things like different kinds of POC projects. Like I just added one, DSCSA in healthcare. You know, what would baselining look like in that environment? That would be an interesting project. That's one thing that we could add here. Nick, you might want to add FRTBs. Don't add any that you're planning on building internally as a proprietary solution. Okay, and that's time. Everybody good? Anybody need a little more time? Offline.
I haven't been able to view the repository via ZenHub yet, so I've spent the entirety of the time.
All right. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it for now. I mean, but we can debug that later. But yeah, definitely want to, if you feel free to, for the rest of the time, if you want to add stuff to the chat, and if you can't, or just go into Slack later on. And I'm going to make sure to copy this right now, just so I've got it. Okay.
Can that just be a housekeeping item, John, for the group? That everybody gets their GitHubs established and connections to ZenHub.
Right. And in fact, if you, here, I'll do this in the, hold on for a second. I want to add this to Slack so I don't lose it. No.
Yeah, I'm trying to connect ZenHub, and it's asking me to connect to all of my personal repos, but not to, but I can't find the connection to Baseline.
Once you've gone past through that step, I think you can just go back into the Baseline. I've just done it. I connected to one of my personal repos and then just went back into the Oasis, and it was there then.
Ah, okay, cool. That's what I'll do then. Thanks.
Oh, darn it. Well, I want to make sure I don't lose that thing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah, so Can I just put this here somewhere? Chat. Okay, so darn it. Tell you what, I'm having trouble copying out the chat. Hey Nick, could you make sure we don't lose that chat thread? Copy it to something.
It should be available in the recording as well, John, when
okay.
it comes.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we've gotten some pretty interesting ones, and we can review those. So the only additional task here is think through the ones that you like, that you've done or that other people have done, and plug them into the board. The Zen Hub, yeah, you can go to Zen Hub, the web app. So you can go straight to app.zenhub.com and like this, and you'll have the board in this way, or you can use the Chrome plugin will also work. And I do notice that those projects are not, yeah, it's because I'm in the wrong workplace, but it'll work. So that was that. I hope that was useful for everybody. I think that's a pretty good example of the kind of thing that we're going to want to be doing on this community. Action item for, I'll follow up with everybody and ask for new ideas about people that should join the SSC. And other than that, I think that we've got our agenda done. We will talk about incentive programs elsewhere, and we're going to need to decide the next meeting date and time. The TSC elected to do 1 week from now, just the same time. Do you want to? Does anybody object to that for the SSC this time? Eventually, we want to go to biweeklies, maybe even monthlies, but right now we're.
It's good for me.
Sounds good. All right. And Arwen, thanks for slacking me that. Great. Everybody, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a good week.
Yes, enjoy your day. Take care.
Okay.